Welcome to part 3 of creating a Creole. We're going to work on the consonants today and a little bit on the orthography. As a quick reminder for our vowel system, we took the vowel inventory of Malagasy and the vowel inventory of French and laid them over one another in order to identify the vowels in the same articulatory space and those that did not fit into categories that perhaps Malagasy speakers would not be able to differentiate between. And this is the vowel inventory that we came up with for our pidgin. Here is the Malagasy consonant inventory. Please notice that I am not using IPA symbols for this chart because there were so many consonant clusters that I thought it would be a little confusing if I started using symbols instead of actual English letters that we're all used to seeing. Malagasy has a lot of consonant categories that do not fit into categories of French or a lot of Germanic or Romance languages. So we are actually going to be able to eliminate a lot of these things. First are the retroflex consonants. Normally we would look at these and say this is a cluster, but in Malagasy they stand alone as a phoneme and differentiate between meanings, so it is very important. But it just means that it is possible for a Malagasy speaker to pronounce these clusters in another language. We're going to eliminate the entire retroflex column, and we're going to eliminate both prenasalized rows. If you remember before, I thought it would be interesting to take the nasal vowels of French and make them long and eliminate the nasal. Well, in Malagasy, they have these prenasalized consonants that happen before plosives or affricates. So we're going to work with French, and it will probably be a case-by-case basis, but if there is a nasal and a French word before a plosive or affricate, we can keep the nasal, but if it is an open-ended syllable, I think we're going to continue with this lengthening of the vowels, just to mix things up a little bit, just to make it a little bit more interesting. The other things we need to move around on this chart are the NG sound and what I'm going to call the enye. These are the velar nasals, and really they're both possible in French and they're both possible in Malagasy. It's just I'm going to move them around a little bit so it's easier to understand. The TS sound, which in English I would equate to tsunami or the ending of the word like cats, is unnecessary. We don't need it really at this point, and if we do need it, it will be for probably for borrowed words, so we can just eliminate that one completely. And the affricate on this chart, it's a DZ, which is equal to the English J, as in judge, is necessary and needed for Malagasy, but it's good to know that they can pronounce this affricate, the j sound, but they can't pronounce a zh sound, which would be a fricative. So this will come up on the next slide. And last, we're going to completely recategorize this top row so that it fits more neatly with the French inventory. So after we move things around, this is our final result. You can tell that it's much cleaner and much simpler. It does eliminate a lot of things in Malagasy that we're just not going to use or will be lost through time. But this simplified consonant inventory makes it easy for us to overlay the French. There are only a few things that are different from this inventory than from the standard French inventory. First, I want to eliminate the palatals here. This would be in English, the y, the w. These are liquid, lateral, moving consonants that in Malagasy we're going to deal with in a second. Also, the uvular trill in French, their letter R, we're not going to realize it as a uvular trill anymore. We're actually going to move it over to a trilled R, like a flap, like a Spanish R, which is what is much more related to a Malagasy. So any words that would be r in French would actually be r in Malagasy and are pidgin and the most interesting thing here, remember I mentioned that J sound. Malagasy speakers can pronounce a J sound, so I'm going to carry this over and assume they can pronounce a CH sound, a J and a Ch, which are both affricates. Well, French has a sh and a zh sound, which are both fricatives. So while the French never need to pronounce a ch or a j in their language, Malagasy speakers trying to speak French are going to realize the fricatives in French as affricates. So any word that would be a sh in French is now a ch. As an example, a word like chateau in French would now be chateau. So our final consonant inventory is very clean, fairly simple actually. There's not much here that is not in English or any European language. So this will be great for the fact that anyone who would actually want to learn this language, it's not going to be very difficult to actually pronounce. Returning to the idea of palatals, the y sound, the w sound, the h sound in French, we are going to realize as diphthongs. This is not unusual in languages for the y sound to be like an ia or an ia or an ie sound, an ia. And because we know that Malagasy speakers can pronounce diphthongs and they have them in their language, it makes complete sense for us to recategorize them as diphthongs instead of as consonants for a easier understanding of the actual phoneme inventory. So we don't need to overwhelm a learner with consonants, and we can just simplify it with vowels and diphthongs. So you can see here that we're actually going to change the J to an ia, the W to an ui or an ua, and if we run into this final diphthong, we will deal with it when we get there. But mostly, if we write the words phonetically, then the new spelling and pronunciation should just reveal itself. Now that we have our inventory, we can look at the orthography. We're going to talk a little bit about the culture later and how they gained the Latin alphabet over the original Malagasy Arabic alphabet. But you can see here we have 22 letters. CH is the only digraph. C will never be used on its own because the C sound will be realized as a K or an S, so we will be spelling it phonetically. The J sound in our language will have the hard affricate J as in English, J. And all other letters are almost equivalent to English pronunciations, but really French. Some examples at the bottom. Comment ça va in French would come out as comment ça va. This is using the lengthening of the vowel because of the nasal. And one quick sentence here, j'ai 4 personnes dans ma famille. J'ai 4 personnes dans ma famille. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe. We're going to actually start talking about the culture and the words we need for these two different cultures to communicate when they first meet. And that's going to be the start of our pidgin.